All right, still a lot of fallout from the Biden hoax, the Biden presidency, so-called. Listen, Biden made the perfect puppet for the deep state, and that's what I'm going to get into this evening. And there was a perfect column written on, I sound like Trump. There was a perfect column, but there was a great column written at the Washington Examiner that I want to go through. Also, the FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino has said that the Bureau is looking into several cases that are involving corruption. I'm going to be talking about that and so much more. But let's start with this idea of Biden. Biden is a complete and utter puppet. There's some cultural issues that I'll get into as well. But I've been wondering, on Memorial Day, this past Memorial Day, and I hope you had a great one. It is a day for mourning, and I also believe it's a day to celebrate and appreciate the lives that the heroes, our fallen heroes, have given us, the sacrifices that they've made, the sacrifices that their families have made, obviously losing a loved one in a battle. So we're so appreciative of them. And nonetheless, I hope that you were able to remember them and also enjoy yourself and enjoy your freedom thanks to their service, thanks to their heroism. All right, so Joe Biden made the perfect puppet for the deep state. And guys, there's all types of news out. The Democratic Party is in absolute shambles. There's one story out there that Democrats are trying to figure out how to relate to men better because they apparently don't know how to relate to men. And that's obvious. All you had to do is look at Biden's past administration, everyone from Tony Blinken to Pete Buttigieg to the dude called Rachel Levine, also the dude that was stealing other people's or other women's, I shouldn't say other women's, stealing women's clothing out of airports. This guy was, I believe, had some nuclear codes. Absolutely astonishing to me. But this is where we are. We did get some great news, and I do want to share this with you. And this happened. This was Deputy Director Dan Bongino. And guys, listen, I got to tell you, you guys may recall just last week I interviewed Stephen Friend, FBI whistleblower. He's not happy with the speed of things that are happening with the FBI under the leadership of Patel and Bongino. And guys, I got to tell you, I trust Stephen Friend wholeheartedly. This is a guy who gets it, in my opinion. This is a guy that was willing to sacrifice everything to do the right thing. And so he's bothered by what he's seeing happening at the FBI because he believes that a lot of the people inside of the deep state are pushing paperwork basically on Patel and on Dan Bongino. And it makes sense. It makes sense to me. But I do believe that there are times where there's going to be good news. I think these are one of those times where there is good news. And so I want to share this with you as a foundation, as I set the table, if you will, for the puppet that was in the White House. And there's so many things that I want to know. I even mentioned I'll mention this cultural issue. We'll get into it later in a separate segment, in a separate podcast. But I do want to take on the Caitlin Clark issue, the Brittany Griner issue, what's happening in the WNBA. I don't intend to ever watch a WNBA game. Perhaps if Caitlin Clark was playing, I might turn it on to see how she does. But I'm just completely fed up with the WNBA. I'm tired and I'm fed up with the racism. But I'm also sitting here thinking Brittany Griner apparently said that Caitlin Clark was trash. She said something about that effing white girl on the court. And I couldn't help but to go back to, is this the same Brittany Griner that the United States under the Biden administration, quote unquote, swapped for the what was it called? What was that guy called? The Merchant of Death? It's crazy. It's crazy. All right, here's what FBI Director Dan Bongino had to say just yesterday, I believe it was. He says that the Bureau is looking at launching investigations into cases of potential political corruption. And I believe that all of this stuff has to be exposed. We need to know the truth. We need transparency and we need accountability. I don't want to just know what happened. I want to know that somebody's going down. I'm sick and tired, frankly, of this deep state getting the upper hand, getting the edge. When I go through this Washington Examiner column, it's going to make it more clear to you. It's going to clarify what we've been going through. And guys, we've all lived through it. But I got to tell you some of the things that I want corrected ASAP. I want a budget corrected. We'll talk about the big, beautiful bill, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the big, beautiful bill. But I also want to make sure that we have a Department of Justice, if they're going to continue to exist, right? That we have a Department of Justice that aren't going to go after United States citizens simply because of our political beliefs, simply because of our political leanings. Well, that's what's happening with Harvard. No, that's not what's happening with Harvard. You have a bunch of anti-Semites, people that are literally causing chaos, people that are causing harm and violence and locking people out of classrooms and causing all types of mayhem on college campuses, many of whom are not citizens of the United States. Some are, but many of whom aren't even citizens of the United States. Many foreign exchange students, so on, et cetera, who, by the way, should get their visas revoked and should get their behinds kicked out. It is not It is not your First Amendment right to intimidate Jewish students, to exact violence or impose violence on Jewish students. We saw the Intifada come to life just last week in Washington, D.C., where that beautiful young couple was slain. That's insane. That is insane. And that has to be stopped. That's what we're witnessing. That's something totally different. So Dan Bongino brings it back. He says, shortly after swearing in, FBI Director Kash Patel and I evaluated a number of cases of potential public corruption that understandably have garnered public interest, quote unquote. Bongino, as you know, is a former Secret Service agent himself, a radio host. And he said that, quote, that they, speaking of him and Patel, made the decision to either reopen or push additional resources and investigative attention to these cases, quote unquote. Now, you guys remember the pipe bomber, right? You guys remember the pipe bomber, the RNC, DNC convention pipe bomber. That's one of the cases that they're looking into. The pipe bomber set these bombs near the Washington, D.C. convention buildings or whatever it was. And it was absolutely astonishing to me that apparently those buildings were swept, yet you had dogs, FBI dogs or law enforcement dogs, that did not sniff out these bombs. It's pretty amazing to me. You had many Capitol police officers, once they got notification that there were some type of bombs, that were called off of their duty at the Capitol. And this was, ironically, if I recall correctly, very close to the time in which riots started to ensue at the Capitol. It's funny how that stuff works. We've not been able to find this pipe bomber, despite the fact that there was video of this pipe bomber wearing a mask, wearing certain types of sneakers, sitting on a street, waiting for a car to pick this person up, whether male or female, I don't know. Looked like a male. But we couldn't be we couldn't be certain. The FBI also said in 2024 that there was a $500,000 reward that is still in effect for information leading to the arrest of the pipe bomb suspect. Now that was 2024. I do not take the FBI or did not take them seriously in 2024. I do take Kash Patel and Dan Bongino seriously. Even though I am bothered by some of the things that I don't see happening as of yet, but I do believe, at least when it comes to Bongino, I do believe he wants to do a good job. So I'm not turning my back on him yet, but I do have to say, I believe that a lot of this stuff needs to be dealt with expeditiously. I hope they're not falling for the trap, which Stephen Friend mentioned, where these paper pushers are pushing all of these things, these caseloads on them, keeping them so busy and keeping them distracted. I hope that's not what's happening, but sometimes it feels like that may be correct. But earlier in 2025, a gentleman by the name of David Sundberg, he's a former assistant director in charge of the FBI Washington field office. He spoke to CNN and he said, maybe allegiances have changed or relationships have changed and it's time to report on the suspect. He's speaking of the pipe bomber, of course. Now, here's what he means. Maybe allegiances have changed. Guys, I believe that the pipe bomber exists in the FBI building. That is my personal belief. Have no evidence, but that's what I believe. And I suspect that many of you believe the same exact thing. He goes on to say, this gentleman Sundberg does, Tips from the public really have been very helpful. But as I mentioned, we're still trying to identify the suspect. So we're trying to release a little more information such that maybe it will jog somebody's memory. Now, obviously, he's speaking of the public, but he's not speaking of the public. I think they know it's internal. I think they're trying to figure out who was hired. Who did the DNC hire to pull this nonsense off? Who would be so dirty? Other cases that they're working on, the discovery of the cocaine inside of the White House in July of 2023. We talked about this briefly last week. I'm sure many of you believe, just as I do, that there was a certain crackhead that we had now found out that was part of Biden's inner circle, that acted, at least in the last year, perhaps the last couple of years, as essentially Biden's chief of staff. This gentleman's name, you may know him, Hunter Biden. Guys, I believe that cocaine is his. Also, the leak of the Supreme Court's decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. You guys remember that? They leaked the decision early, and then a lot of these Supreme Court justices, the conservative ones anyway, had to be on guard. Threats of their life. One guy came to Kavanaugh's house with a gun. He's now sitting in federal prison. We'll be back. You're listening to The Carl Jackson Show. Hey, guys, welcome to The Carl Jackson Show. I do want to talk to you about mypillow.com. As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Man, isn't that the truth? Mike is offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets, any size and any color, just $49.98. That's right. You could even get queens, kings, split kings, and cow kings, any size and any color, just $49.98. Order now, because when they're gone, they are gone. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you will receive $100 in free digital gifts. That's pretty cool. Again, when your order is over $100, you'll receive $100 in free digital gifts. All you have to do is call 1-800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or go to mypillow.com. Make sure you use the promo code Carl for the amazing offer of $49.98 on the Giza Dream Sheets, any size, any color. That number again, 800-858-0263, or use promo code Carl at mypillow.com. Welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Please follow us, all things social media, X, Instagram, and Facebook, primarily at Carl Jackson Show, at The Carl Jackson Show. Before we went to the break, we were talking about Dan Bongino, FBI Deputy Director, has come out and said that the Bureau is looking at several cases that involve potential public corruption, and I'm glad to hear it. But I hope they do more than look. I hope that they find some people to hold accountable. And that includes the pipe bomber that mysteriously was never found, the pipe bomber that tried to allegedly blow up the DNC and RNC convention, when I don't believe that was the case at all. I believe that was a complete and utter setup. And it's disturbing to me that the world's premier law enforcement agency can't find this pipe bomber. And I suspect the reason being is because it was an inside job. That's my opinion. That's my take. The discovery of the cocaine inside of the White House in July of 2023, we found out, obviously, as more news continues to trickle out over the disgrace and the absolute hoax and the gaslighting that occurred during the Biden administration, that complete fake presidency, where the inner circle and the auto pin won or ran the White House. We found out about the cocaine issue there, or at least we know about the cocaine issue being found in the White House. We now know that obviously Hunter Biden acted as the chief of staff, at least for the last year of Biden's presidency. We had that leak of the Supreme Court where at the Supreme Court early on, before the overturning of Roe v. Wade, where literally you have a guy in jail now that's sitting in federal prison for attempting to murder Justice Kavanaugh. Dan Bongino goes on. He says, I receive requested briefings on these cases weekly. We are making progress. He said, if you have any investigative tips on these matters that may assist us, then please contact the FBI. Bongino also said he and Patel have conducted one interview together, and that was for Fox. He said, we decided early on to limit our media footprint overall in order to keep the attention on the work that's being done. He says, we have chosen to communicate in writing on this platform to fill some of the inevitable information vacuums. Obviously, you guys know, and we're all disappointed. They claimed that Jeffrey Epstein was committed suicide. Okay. I mean, listen, I wonder who's, I still, there was just too much that happened that day, but listen, they've got pictures, they've got the summary, but you have to wonder who put the summary together, who put the pictures together. You have to wonder. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but okay, I'm gonna roll with it. Because honestly, I don't believe we have I don't believe we have a choice, but I am happy to hear regardless that now Patel has confirmed that the FBI is investigating New York Attorney General Letitia James. That's good news. They're going to find out who left the cocaine. I think I can direct them where they should go inside of the White House. Who was behind the Roe v. Wade leak? I think that John Roberts is trying to cover for somebody, and I think that's a big no-no. Now, hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong, but it doesn't make sense to me that the justices wouldn't know or who was responsible for the leak, given that is a tight-knit circle of people. Now, I do want to turn your attention to a couple of things, and I want to play some video for you. If you could get cut number, I just want to remind you guys of something. If you can get number 10 ready, video clip number 10 ready, Gabe. This is an interview that I believe this was the one with Jesse Waters, if I'm not mistaken. Just a reminder, if you will, and this occurred a couple of weeks ago, but I still think it's important and it's irrelevant because we're talking about the deep state and we're talking about how Biden was a puppet to the deep state. As a matter of fact, he was the perfect puppet to the deep state. I don't know if you guys have heard the news, but even when it comes to California Democrats are not keen on Kamala Harris. People don't believe that this chick can win. She was out and she made another, we don't have the video, but another word salad. The lady is a complete and utter disaster. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and run clip number 10. And then I want to take you through this Washington Examiner column, because again, what we've lived through is a deep state presidency, an executive branch and administrative state presidency. And I think it's extremely important. I think it's extremely crucial. Things that I want to see done while President Trump is in. We have to have the restoration of the rule of law inside of the United States of America. We cannot have people like Derek Chauvin going to jail over a political narrative. This weekend, the WNBA, one of the teams, I don't even care. I know the video is out there. Perhaps I'll talk about it more, but I'm not going to watch the WNBA. But you have political narratives. A guy sitting in prison, Derek Chauvin, over a political narrative that he murdered George Floyd. And you had a WNBA team that honored George Floyd on Memorial Day. Anyone that pays a ticket to see that team, I don't know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking. What a complete and utter disgrace. Listen, I realize I try to offer grace to the family, regardless of the fact that I believe that actually, based on evidence, George Floyd was a criminal. George Floyd was a meth head or on fentanyl, high as a kite. The day that he died, he was going to die anyway because he had fentanyl in his system. Derek Chauvin did exactly what he was trained to do. And the only reason he's sitting in prison is because Democrats wanted that media attention. They wanted the race baiting, the black versus the white. It was a political season. It was a political season. And Democrats were willing to use whatever they needed or whatever possible, whatever story, whatever narrative possible to say Republicans evil, Democrats are good, Republicans racist, Democrats not racist. And you have a guy sitting in prison, a political prisoner. And I'm not sure that he's going to be let loose because Republicans are cowards. Also because even if Trump grants him a pardon federally, you got Minnesota State that pressed charges so that he couldn't get out. And then you have a bunch of cowards that aren't going to let him out. You have what's the name of the person that examines the body, Gabe? It was the coroner, I believe, that examines the body. The reports came back. The guy was high as a kite. The guy didn't die because of Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck, which it was not. It was on his upper back. I encourage everybody to watch The Fall of Minneapolis. one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. I believe that you will watch that and you will come to the conclusion that Derek Chauvin was completely innocent. All right, now getting back to this deep state issue, cut number 10, please, Gabe.
Weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
just to try to hide the evidence.
Right. So just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over 1 terabyte of accounting records from several years. So you'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? And the Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace. And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets. And so I think it's a great example because most Americans don't know what's going on at a lot of these smaller agencies. And this is, I think, the most extreme case of some of the wasteful spend that we're finding.
So the agencies are hiding money from you. They're sending it to the Taliban. They have loaded weapons in the department buildings.
At the Institute of Peace.
At the Institute of Peace.
That's right.
So this is a cover-up.
Oh, my Lord.
This one, yes, a cover-up. Yeah.
It's a cover-up.
No, they did delete a vast amount of financial information. That's really a definition of a cover-up.
Isn't that illegal to delete evidence?
Yes.
Shred documents?
It is. It's certainly illegal to delete accounting records that that Congress would certainly want to know where the congressionally appropriated funds are going.
Who's going to jail for this? Who's going to jail for this? I get it. This frustrates me to no end. All right. So listen to this article. All right. So basically, we all know that this book by Jake Tapper, I hate saying the name of it, actually by Alex Thompson, and Jake Tapper put his name on it because he did little of the work. But nonetheless, it's basically an affirmation of what we all already knew. All right. And there was a column in the Washington Examiner entitled "Joe Biden was the perfect deep state president," and he was the perfect puppet for the deep state. We know that this guy has had cancer, likely before or while he was running for president, perhaps even before. We know that he's basically a dementia patient from everything that is coming out, confirming what we all said, and we were told that we were a bunch of liars, and all this nonsense, all this name calling against us. But here's what this column says. Efforts to cover up a president's physical and mental decline have a long and ignominious tradition. Woodrow Wilson famously had a stroke and was largely incapacitated for his last year in office. You guys know that his wife ran the White House for his last year in office. Then the reality of Franklin Roosevelt's health was kept secret during World War II. There have long been questions about whether Reagan was afflicted by Alzheimer's during his second term in office. And frankly, I don't believe he was. Perhaps there were early signs of it where it didn't impact him big time. But I think that's the narrative that the left wants to say that Ronald Reagan was cuckoo, despite the fact that they just kept us in the dark for 4 years. The article goes on, and I'll have to finish up on the other side. None of those instances, of course, come close to the scandal that was the Biden presidency. I believe it was Jake Tapper talking about or comparing this to Watergate, just to give it some context, just to reference it as far as history. No, this is way beyond Watergate. This is way worse than Watergate. This was a deep state presidency. We'll be back. I'll explain. Welcome back to the show. So we're talking about the perfect puppet president for the deep state, and that was Joe Biden. That's what we witnessed, and that's what we've got to get to the bottom of. Guys, we've got to restore the rule of law inside of the United States. It's one of the things that concerns me the most. I don't want to be a target for the left again. I don't want to see what we saw. Remember I forget what she was called, the lady that was in charge of censoring conservatives, or there was going to be another department built for censoring conservatives. Whose idea was that, by the way? Now that we know that Biden, now that everything that we suspected as conservatives is being confirmed, I want to know who was responsible for Brittany Griner and that swap with the Merchant of Death. Who was responsible for the lady? Thank God it didn't come to fruition. But the Biden administration trying to hire the lady that was going to be like a censorship czar, in essence, to make us like Europe, to make us like the UK. Who was responsible for these particular decisions? I want to know. The Washington Examiner goes on talking about obviously Ronald Reagan and Woodrow Wilson. I shouldn't say obviously for Ronald Reagan, but the left wants you to believe that he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs during his last administration. I frankly don't believe he was. All right. None of those instances, the article goes on, of course, come close to the scandal that was the Biden presidency, which effectively was run by a small cadre of aides and family members who operated behind the scenes while the world watched as the ostensible leader of the free world aged and declined in an undignified and humiliating fashion. Now, I told you last week, and I can't recall all the names, but Ron Klain was in the inner circle. Jill Biden was in the inner circle. One of Obama's former attorneys was in the inner circle. There were Anita Dunn was another. Anita Dunn, that's a straight up communist who was in the inner circle. And I want to know more about her. I have a sneaky suspicion that Anita Dunn, particularly after Ron Klain left, was calling a lot of the shots. I don't know, but she was a commie. And for Biden to go from, listen, Biden was never a moderate. He was always a left-wing liberal. You can check his voting record. Was he a commie? I don't think so. And I just wonder if he was getting filtered information from people like Anita Dunn. The inquiring minds want to know. We'll have to wait and find out. Tapper and Thompson relayed numerous tales of senior administration officials, including cabinet secretaries, who were unable to have much access to Biden, who was supposed to be their boss, instead having to work through a network of go-betweens who would then convey the information to the inner circle of people. The article goes on, in many ways, the most disturbing truth of the Biden administration is that the sprawling federal bureaucracy has become so vast and self-functioning that an incapacitated president hardly registered. Stop there. I want you to listen to that, because that's what we're up against. Guys, and I'll talk about this later. One of the reasons I want to get to the big, beautiful bill, I am not satisfied with the big, beautiful bill, at least the House version. There are plenty of good things in it. I'm going to get to it in a later podcast, but I'm going to give you the good and the bad, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the big, beautiful bill. And we cannot be afraid to call it out. This is our only chance to right the ship. I believe that wholeheartedly. I do believe. I wasn't even sure what to think at first. I believe that God allowed Trump to be elected this go round. If we don't get this right, if we don't right this ship right now, this is our fault. I believe that the Republican Party can give Trump his wishes, his desires, his campaign promises, and cut the spending. And we'll get into that later. We can reduce the deficit spending, and we have to. You know what? Listen, if you want to kill the deep state, you better shrink the size of government. Hear me again. If you want to eliminate the deep state, the only way to do that is to shrink the size of government. We cannot have what we just had, a puppet presidency, occur again. Because people like you and me, we're in deep doo-doo. I mean, it's as simple as that. I don't think we've seen anything yet if we let these commies get in again. And the Democrats are reeling. The Democrats are reeling. They're in such bad shape. It's unbelievable. Gabe, I want you to play a video clip real quick. Cut number 13. This is Brittany Griner. I guess maybe we got to blink out our mouth. And there's a reason why I'm playing this. And I'm going to do a full podcast on this particular issue, because I want to know who the heck made the swap for the Merchant of Death when it comes to Brittany Griner. Cut number 13, please, Gabe.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
Okay, so this is, she said trash, and I got to be careful here. But basically what she said, trash, speaking of Caitlin Clark, effing white girl is what she said. And I'm not concerned. Listen, and I do understand this. Tensions run high, even in sports games. I used to play sports. I would say some crazy stuff. People would say crazy stuff to me. So I understand that stuff can happen. But I think that the WNBA, I think that they're a racist organization. I think that they're a sexist organization. And I want to know from ingrates like this, who the heck was responsible for bringing this chick back from Russia in exchange for the Merchant of Death? That should have never happened. This is why the deep state is so important. This is why we have to end it. This is why our time is now. I'm sick and tired, frankly, of many conservatives sitting there and saying, oh, this is a great bill. No, there are some great things in the bill. in totality, it is not a great bill. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I want to save the United States, even after the Trump presidency. And I think, frankly, a lot of conservatives are just too coward to say it. The article goes on. In many ways, the most disturbing truth of the Biden administration is that the sprawling federal bureaucracy has become so vast and self-functioning that an incapacitated president hardly registered. The deep state is so effective. They didn't need a president, they felt. This is why they hate Trump. This is a guy that's coming in. He wants to run the executive branch. Oh, wait a minute. As long as you don't mess with us, we're cool. But he's like, wait a minute. The people elected me. See, Democrats can run this thing on autopilot. The article goes on. The very agencies that are tasked with executing the executive power of the United States effectively run on autopilot. Regardless of who the president is or what agenda he chooses to pursue. Is that what you voted for? In this sense, Biden was a perfect president for the deep state, a nominal figurehead who exercised very little power, even as the government he was supposedly elected to run operated as normal, with little concern about who the president was or what he was doing, because there was little he could do, given that his operational time was 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and they were primarily occupied by awkward and canned appearances. Listen to this. The Biden administration had many, many faults. There's little question of that. It was effectively a 4-year regency, given that its namesake was hardly capable of governing, but it also exposed the federal government for what it is, a vast, unaccountable bureaucracy that does not need a president or an executive to operate, except that is unconstitutional. During the first Trump administration, listen to this, the federal bureaucracy thwarted and stonewalled numerous efforts that the duly elected executive and his advisors sought to implement. In a pair of reports for America First Policy Institute, James Shirk, who served on the Domestic Policy Council in Trump's first term and is back again, detailed the extent to which federal employees obstructed, slow walked, or otherwise sabotaged, this is very important, lawful directives from the White House and cabinet officials. In one of many examples, Shirk wrote this, that, quote, career attorneys at the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, did not inform political appointees about major cases the agency was involved in or the government's positions in pending cases. Is that crazy or what? This is insane. This is insane. And we need accountability. We need answers. Bongino, Patel, we need answers. And we need the deep state cut. We need a balanced budget amendment. I'm sorry. This is our opportunity. This is our chance. We got to get a better bill. All of this stuff is intertwined. Don't believe I know, listen, we want to see Trump get a win. I want to see Trump get a win, but I want to make sure that America wins even after Trump is out of the White House. And the way to do that is to cut and slash the deep state. Elon Musk put out a tweet or a post earlier that he tried. He tried, meaning with Doge. The Doge cuts aren't even implemented in these bills. I'll do a podcast on that. Again, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly of the big beautiful bill. Let me read you. There's a couple of things going on. A closer look at the Trump win and America's political realignment. A flashing warning sign for a Democrat party. The Democratic Party is reeling. They are suffering big time. They need to appeal to men. They come to the conclusion that they're horrible with men. But not only that, this was from the New York Times. Talking about the sheer scale of the Republican victory and margins to dizzying new heights in the nation's reddest passions taken together. Basically, here's what happened. Trump won 2,678 counties, or he expanded. More Republicans expanded their reach in 2,678 counties in this last election. Democrats only 435. They don't know what to do. We've got them on our heels. We need to restore the rule of law, and we need to cut the spending so that we destroy the deep state. Until next time, guys, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.